February 20, 1944. Near Oschersleben, Germany, Major Egon Mayer of Jagdgeschwader II looked up and saw something that should not have been possible. Above him stretched wave after wave of American bombers. The Luftwaffe had spent months fighting the U.S. 8th Air Force. German fighters had attacked bomber formations over the North Sea, Belgium, the Netherlands, and deep inside the Reich itself. They had inflicted heavy casualties during famous battles such as Schweinfurt and Regensburg. Hundreds of American aircraft had been destroyed. Thousands of airmen had been killed, wounded, or captured. Yet the formations overhead seemed larger than ever. For many German pilots, the math simply did not make sense. Every military force had limits. Every air force could be worn down. Aircraft factories could only produce so many bombers. Training schools could only graduate so many crews. Losses on the scale being suffered by the Americans should eventually force a reduction in operations. Instead, the opposite appeared to be happening. By early 1944, the skies above Germany were filling with bomber streams of unprecedented size. Raids involving hundreds of aircraft became routine. Soon, missions involving more than 1,000 bombers would strike targets across the Reich. To Luftwaffe pilots climbing to intercept them, it seemed as if every victory produced an even larger enemy formation the next time. What German airmen were witnessing was not merely an air campaign. It was the visible expression of a vast system operating across an ocean. Behind every B-17 and B-24 stood factories running day and night. Behind every crew stood training programs producing thousands of new airmen. Behind every mission stood an organization designed to absorb losses and continue expanding. The Luftwaffe believed attrition would eventually stop the American offensive. Instead, every month seemed to bring more bombers. To understand why German pilots were stunned by these ever-growing formations, we must first examine what they saw from their cockpits and why it appeared so impossible. When American heavy bombers first began penetrating deep into occupied Europe and Germany, Luftwaffe commanders believed they understood how the battle would unfold. The theory seemed straightforward. Strategic bombers were large, relatively slow, and forced to fly predictable routes toward their targets. German fighters could concentrate against them, inflict heavy casualties, and eventually make daylight bombing operations too costly to continue. At first, the evidence appeared to support that belief. In August 1943, the U.S. 8th Air Force launched the famous Schweinfurt-Regensburg missions. The bombers struck critical industrial targets but paid a steep price. 60 aircraft were lost during the operation. 2 months later, on October 14, 1943, later known as Black Thursday, American forces returned to Schweinfurt and suffered another devastating blow. 60 B-17 flying fortresses were destroyed, while many others returned badly damaged. For Luftwaffe leaders and fighter commanders overseeing Reich defense operations, these losses appeared significant. German pilots repeatedly reported successful interception of bomber kills. The attrition figures suggested that the Americans were approaching unsustainable losses, yet something unexpected happened. Instead of retreating, the bombing offensive continued. As 1943 gave way to 1944, German fighter pilots increasingly encountered larger formations than before. Raids involved hundreds of bombers stretching across the horizon. Interception reports described seemingly endless streams of aircraft moving toward industrial centers, transportation hubs, and aircraft factories throughout the Reich. The problem was not simply the number of bombers in a single formation. It was that the formations kept returning. Crews that survived one major raid expected American strength to weaken. Instead, new bomber groups arrived from England. Fresh aircraft appeared. Additional airfields became active. The offensive seemed capable of replacing losses faster than the Luftwaffe could inflict them. From the cockpit of a German fighter, this looked almost impossible. Every engagement produced visible destruction, yet the enemy's strength continued to grow. The reason lay far beyond the battlefields of Europe. To understand it, we must leave the skies over Germany and examine the enormous system that stood behind every American bomber crossing the channel. To a Luftwaffe pilot, a B-17 Flying Fortress was an aircraft. To the United States Army Air Forces, it was the final product of an enormous organizational system. That distinction helps explain why German expectations repeatedly failed. The strategic bombing campaign was not built around individual airplanes. It was built around the assumption that losses would occur, and that those losses had to be continuously replaced. Long before American bombers reached Germany, senior leaders such as General Henry H. Arnold had pushed for an air force capable of sustaining a prolonged industrial war. Behind every bomber group in England stood a vast training pipeline stretching across the United States. Pilots, navigators, bombardiers, radio operators, engineers, and gunners moved through specialized schools before being assembled into combat crews. Thousands of new airmen entered the system each year. Aircraft followed a similar path. New bombers were delivered to training units, ferried across the Atlantic, assigned to operational groups, and integrated into combat formations. Maintenance organizations ensured that aircraft returning from missions could be repaired and prepared for the next operation. The scale was extraordinary. By 1944, the U.S. Army Air Forces employed hundreds of thousands of personnel who never entered combat airspace. Mechanics, logisticians, planners, engineers, intelligence officers, weather specialists, and administrators all contributed to keeping bomber formations operational. Leaders such as Major General Ira Eaker and later Lieutenant General Jimmy Doolittle understood that strategic bombing was ultimately a contest of endurance. Every mission depended on a steady flow of aircraft, spare parts, fuel, ammunition, and trained crews. This meant that German pilots were fighting only the visible portion of the American war effort. Destroying a bomber was certainly painful for the Allies, but the system behind that bomber remained intact. New crews continued graduating. New aircraft continued arriving. Damaged aircraft were repaired. Operational groups rebuilt themselves. The Luftwaffe was attempting to win a battle of attrition. What many German commanders did not yet fully grasp was that they were facing an opponent whose industrial foundation was unlike anything Europe had ever seen. If a Luftwaffe pilot had been transported from the skies over Germany to the industrial heartland of the United States in 1944, he would have immediately understood why the bomber offensive refused to shrink. The answer was not hidden in England. It was hidden in American factories. Across the United States, aircraft production had reached a scale that stunned even Allied planners. At Boeing's massive facilities in Seattle and Wichita, B-17 Flying Fortresses rolled off assembly lines in numbers unimaginable before the war. At consolidated plants in San Diego, Fort Worth, and elsewhere, B-24 Liberators were produced at an equally astonishing pace. Then there was the most famous example of all. At the Willow Run plant in Michigan, industrialist Henry Ford's production methods were adapted to aircraft manufacturing. The facility became one of the largest factories in the world. At peak efficiency, completed B-24 bombers emerged from the assembly line at a remarkable rate. The numbers were staggering. During the war, American industry produced more than 12,000 B-17s and over 18,000 B-24s. These figures represented not merely aircraft construction, but the output of a national economy reorganized for war. Every bomber required aluminum, engines, machine guns, radios, instruments, tires, ammunition, and thousands of individual components. Behind each aircraft stood an entire network of suppliers spread across the country. German intelligence understood that America possessed considerable industrial strength. What many analysts failed to appreciate was the sheer scale of that strength once fully mobilized. When Luftwaffe fighters destroyed dozens of bombers during a raid, German commanders often viewed those losses through the lens of European industrial experience. For the United States, however, those losses were being offset by a production system capable of generating new aircraft faster than Germany expected. German pilots could see bombers falling from the sky. They could count victories. What they could not see was the industrial machine replacing those losses behind the scenes. By 1944, Luftwaffe pilots were not the only Germans struggling to understand the growing bomber offensive. The confusion reached some of the highest levels of the German military. German intelligence officers carefully tracked Allied air operations. They collected reports from fighter units, analyzed bomber losses, and estimated the strength of the U.S. Army Air Forces. On paper, the data often appeared encouraging. The problem was that many German planners interpreted these numbers through assumptions that no longer matched reality. For decades, European military thinking had been shaped by the industrial limits of the First World War and the interwar period. Most nations simply could not absorb endless losses. German leaders expected the Americans to face similar constraints. Instead, American strength continued to expand. The Luftwaffe's Reich air defense system frequently measured success through aircraft destroyed during individual engagements. Pilots submitted victory claims. Commanders compiled loss estimates. Tactical successes were real, but they often failed to answer a more important question: how quickly could the enemy recover? That distinction proved critical. A raid that cost the Americans dozens of bombers might appear highly successful from the German perspective. Yet, if replacement aircraft and crews arrived faster than losses accumulated, the overall strategic balance remained unchanged, or even shifted further in America's favor. This misunderstanding affected decision-making throughout the air war. German leaders repeatedly hoped that increasing bomber losses would eventually force the United States to scale back daylight operations. The disastrous Schweinfurt raid seemed to support that expectation. Yet instead of collapsing, the offensive adapted and expanded. By early 1944, a troubling reality was becoming impossible to ignore. The bomber streams were growing larger, not smaller, and soon, another development would make the situation even worse for the Luftwaffe. For much of the war, German fighter pilots had one major advantage. Even when bomber formations were heavily armed, they remained vulnerable once they flew beyond the range of Allied escort fighters. Deep inside Germany, Luftwaffe units could concentrate their attacks against relatively isolated bomber streams. But by early 1944, the situation began to change dramatically. The key development was the arrival of long-range escort fighters capable of accompanying bombers all the way to their targets and back. Most important was the North American P-51 Mustang, particularly when equipped with drop tanks that extended its operational range deep into the Reich. This transformed the air war. Under the leadership of Lieutenant General Jimmy Doolittle, American fighter doctrine evolved. Escort fighters increasingly conducted aggressive fighter sweeps designed to engage German aircraft before they could reach the bombers. The results were profound. Luftwaffe pilots who once expected relatively predictable attacks against bomber formations now faced growing numbers of escort fighters. American fighters appeared over German airfields, intercepted interceptors before they formed up, and challenged German units throughout the mission. At the same time, bomber strength continued to increase. Now the Luftwaffe faced a double problem. Not only were more bombers arriving over Germany, but fewer of them were being destroyed. During operations such as Big Week in February 1944, the combined weight of American bomber production, replacement systems, and fighter protection placed enormous pressure on German air defenses. For many German airmen, the change was astonishing. The bombers had not disappeared after heavy losses. They had returned in greater numbers, and now they were arriving with powerful protection. To the Luftwaffe pilots who climbed into the skies over Germany, the growing bomber streams often seemed impossible to explain. They shot down aircraft. They inflicted casualties. They fought some of the largest aerial battles in history. Yet month after month, the formations kept returning, and they kept getting bigger. What German airmen were witnessing was not simply the strength of the B-17 or the B-24. They were confronting the combined power of American industry, logistics, training, leadership, and organization. Every bomber lost over Germany was connected to a system capable of producing another. Every crew that failed to return was part of a training pipeline already preparing replacements. Every damaged aircraft represented a challenge that maintenance units and supply networks were designed to overcome. The Luftwaffe fought bravely and often effectively on a tactical level. But strategic warfare is not determined solely by individual victories. It is determined by which side can sustain the fight. By 1944, the United States had created an air war machine unlike anything the world had seen before. Factories produced aircraft in enormous quantities. Training schools generated new crews. Commanders adapted tactics. Long-range escorts reduced losses. Together, these elements ensured that the bombing offensive could continue growing even under intense pressure. In the end, the mystery that stunned many German pilots had a simple answer. The bombers kept arriving in larger numbers because they were backed by an industrial and organizational system larger than anything the Luftwaffe could destroy. The aircraft filling the skies above Germany were only the visible part of that machine. The real weapon was the system behind them.